It's the SDG podcast. Today we're here with the podcasters and a special guest. Podcasters, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Els Tahura.
I'm Peter Lawrence.
And with us today is Nick Brukin.
Hello.
And I asked Nick to be here because he does a lot of coaching stuff. One of his passions is coaching.
Softball.
And our topic is kind of along those lines. So today we're going to talk about apprenticeships and the classic master-apprentice relationship and how that would apply to the tech world. So,
or can it apply?
Yeah. Would it work? For coming from it from our company standpoint, where we're a consulting company. We provide consultants wherever needed. We look for experienced people. We look for people that already have mastery of the kinds of things that they do. So it would be bringing in a whole new type of employee that we would want to. We're basically building people with experience and mastery.
Right.
And would that work? So there it is, teed up. Yeah,
Nick,
the
Nick,
first
do you know the
question
answer?
for everybody is, would that even work?
I think it could.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of cases where I've seen in the past and even worked with folks that, didn't go the traditional route, didn't go to 4 years of school at a special computer science school and get their magical degrees, or maybe went and got their English degree and then slowly went through. Okay. For the
Those
record,
of you listening, we're raising our hands that one of us did not go the 4 year, and another one, it wasn't English, it was history and religion. But either way, we ended up in software.
So for the record, I was not choosing those topics specifically to call out my fellow podcasters. It just was lucky. But also, so it's a non-traditional route, right? You come into tech and you sort of build that repertoire of skills and excellence, and like I've told told my kids, after that first job, whatever's on your resume, the school and everything like that sort of goes away, right? Like you get your first job with your resume, and after that, your last job helps you get your next job. So I don't know.
Yeah, the education becomes less important as the experience kicks in.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Which is almost like what we're talking about, right? With an apprenticeship, or where you start with zero experience and you acquire it on the way.
I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to have a successful IT career with a 10-month broadcasting certificate and a quarter and a half of actual college.
And you should be, right? I mean, it's a non-traditional path, and it is surprising how many people went sort of a non-traditional path. I went the other extreme. I got an engineering degree, and then I got a master's degree, and then I started working in the field. So I went extra school instead of less school.
That's what happened to you.
That explains a lot, I'm sure. Sure, we're gonna bring it on a little bit.
Well, you've always seemed to know things about things.
I try to know a lot of things about a lot of things, or a little bit about a lot of things. So, yeah, Nick, your history and religion degree, are you using that every day? Are you do you feel cheated by having those, or
no? I would argue it's more of a liberal arts degree, which means I know how to learn.
Yeah.
So I take that with me every single day, particularly when I'm speaking with people who know what's going on in the background of software development, and I don't. So I take my conceptual knowledge and tactic at everything and try to piece things together.
Nick,
Sometimes
you are not a actual developer.
Oh, I couldn't write a lick of code. No way.
Me
no,
neither.
I know more French than I do any language it's being used in the back end of or front end of anything.
Yeah, but on the project delivery side, kind of what do you specialize in?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's trying to build teams. Certainly by today's, I guess, market, but ultimately, we're all trying to deliver some working software to a customer so that we're marketable and useful. But to do that, I think the majority of my time is spent both connecting those dots to get it from, point A, from concept to development, then to delivery. But also how we're going to do that and how do we continuously improve in that. And I'm not trying to spew out all the agile catchphrases here, but they are there for a reason because it does work.
They seem to work, right?
They do. And this subject is very interesting because it's like there's the history of apprenticeship and mastery. There's like, where did those things start from? And where are they still used today when it comes to software? It is very interesting because oftentimes you get a mix of a team. And in my role, and certainly in a consulting sense of project delivery or leadership, we don't have a say in who the team is. And so we can get a very big variety of people and backgrounds and knowledge bases. So even if they're little mini shorter term apprenticeships, that could be of significant value to the overall.
Yeah, you might find yourself with an apprentice, just like falling into it. You just show up and, hey, there's a guy on our team. He's just starting out. It'd be great if he could tag along and learn this stuff as we go through the project and kind of sit next to you, do pair programming or.
Well, yeah, pair programming is that sort of a version of this, right? To some degree it is but to some degree it's like you're both just working on the same thing and you could both be coming at this, at the same level. But yeah, I mean, and what does the business call for too? Like, what do you have time to allow for training and onboarding and apprenticing and whatnot?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the bigger questions because, like you said, we've got little bits of aspects of apprenticeships that we might see on teams, whether it's pair programming or having a more experienced developer do the code reviews and the junior developers are doing sort of bug fixing just to start to get their hands dirty. But to then say, okay, we're going to make this a formal process where we are explicitly building the skills of, this one or more people up, that takes a lot more effort on the side of the team and the business to set that program up, to have milestones, to be able to say, okay, you've reached this level. This is associated with a pay increase. This is associated with some kind of recognition that then you can say, yep, I'm ready. I've gone through and I'm at a point where now I can take on an apprentice. Right. I think that I like that idea, but yeah, I think you really have to sell the business on that side because it does take a lot of time and effort to build that out.
Well, and it's, conceptually it's different than, say, training for a position. We're okay, now the trainee is waiting on your table and the trainer is correcting them and things like that. But that's a week, and then that person's on their own, and then they're a server.
Yeah.
And an apprentice, or they're not, or they're gone.
Or they're fired.
Some I've trained servers. Some of them have been gone within an hour.
Some of them have gone on to become servers. Others not so lucky.
Yeah. but it seems like a longer term
Yes.
relationship.
Well, more to learn, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
or
that
is that
becomes a
our
partnership where you're both able to do the work. You're getting two people for whatever price. You're getting the master and the apprentice. The work's getting done. They work together to do it. There's still learning going on. There's still different roles happening. There's still a person that's primarily has the say in how we're going to do things. But that could go for years. My brother is a painter, and he's got a great reputation. His partner and he work together, and sometimes he brings on other people, and he's got to spend a lot of time with them to get him up to speed.
Edging is really hard, man.
It is. You got to have a cut guy,
Yeah.
and then you got to have a roll and spray guy. That's the ideal partnership.
It's almost like a mix of boxing, but not quite, right?
Yeah. You got to have a cut man. But it's like a longer term thing, because that's a skill that you don't perfect in one painting job or even 1 year of painting. It takes a long time to really get that refined. Have you ever seen Hero Dreams of Sushi?
Yes.
Yes.
And his son works as sort of an apprentice there.
Yeah, it's a documentary about a man who's a world-renowned sushi chef who owns this absolutely minuscule restaurant in, I can't remember if it's in Tokyo or not. It's in Japan. And keep going, Kyle.
And he's Hero is like pushing 80.
I was going to say his son is like 60 or
60,
something like that.
And his son is like, I hope someday. How long you been doing this? 40 years. But I'm hoping someday I'll be able to do this on my own. It's like, wow, that's perfecting your craft. That's a long-term apprenticeship. The first 10 years was just learning to make the rice.
Right.
But in in our current situation, like if we're in a smaller market, at some point we tapped out all the available resources that we want at that high experience mastery level, and all that's left are apprentice material.
Yeah.
And people retire and people move up and they move on. Or we get to a point where it's like we can't find the people, so we need to build them.
Right.
Are we going to get to that point?
Nick, it looked like you were going to say something.
Always
Perfect.
look like I'm going to say something. It just keeps
Awesome.
everybody on their toes. And it's a tactic. See, no. Are you suggesting that in software, like what are our ground rules for this discussion? Is this, we just went to a lifetime apprenticeship, which I don't know if we can afford to, keep somebody, there's already,
there's different levels. After
right.
40 years, you're at this level.
Can and how we bring someone in that we wouldn't normally hire and throw in the field.
Mm-hmm.
How can we widen our scope, widen our hiring pool to take in less skilled, unskilled, whatever that is, that apprentice candidate? Would we be able to take them in and get them to the level of mastery where they could work here?
I might poke holes.
Go ahead.
What?
Yes.
Like in what? So software is a very wide ranging, right? Are we getting mastery in .NET, in data? Like what in?
So let's say, let's stick to Java or .NET development coding.
Okay.
So traditional object-oriented languages, coding, start from a high school diploma and take that candidate on.
And a natural curiosity.
Let's hope.
Semicolons, brackets, curly braces. I'm ready.
Kyle's
Kyle will be the guinea pig.
Kyle is trying. Yeah, is this a secret? Maybe this is a secret way for Kyle to get into development.
I need to get out of
Become the
this.
first
I'm
apprentice.
looking for an out. You gotta save me.
If anybody's listening out there.
I mean, honestly, it's a challenge, right? Because you are going to have to, and even in a regular corporate environment, bringing someone on, someone like Nick who's shown aptitude for learning, and same with Al and Kyle. It's got the 10-month certificate, 8-month certificate.
Broadcasting.
Yeah. An aptitude
10
for
months.
learning and an aptitude for understanding something, and a desire to do the job. I think you can take that person, but the cost is going to be fairly large, especially that, the first 3 months, I'm not getting any of my tasks done, right? Because I'm converting that person into hopefully a solid programmer, some thinking logically, and how to do sort of, going a little bit above and beyond what normal people think, I guess that's the way I look at it. Normal people don't think in logic like programmers do. You don't hit an approach and say, well, I've got this list of things and I'm going to go through it and make it happen. I'm going to go through it 10 times to find the right numbers or whatever. Stuff like that. It takes a sort of a mindset. I think that's a challenge for some people.
What are the software subjects that could withstand a prolonged apprenticeship before it's outdated? I mean, I always hear, you guys, I don't know, but when I've got teams that are very much like a mix of this podcast. Somebody who's had all the education, formal education, and somebody who's just naturally curious and just came out and are just as effective. And the argument that I've heard is, you go to school, you can learn some basics, but that you'll take with you, but right away, the technology's already outpaced your ability to learn it. What is our objective with an apprenticeship? Is it to learn a specific thing, or how to approach these things? Well,
I think at the start you'd have to pick, right? I don't think you.
We're talking somebody straight out of high school with maybe they have some personal experience, but otherwise.
Let's hope they've cracked something online and said, well, maybe I've looked at Python for a week and this looks really cool, and away we go, or okay. Some kind of, because there definitely are a lot of people going, there's robotic clubs and a lot of in high school things that get you set for this, right?
Yeah. What's the turtle on the matchbook in terms of tech?
To draw the turtle?
Yeah. Want to go to art school? Draw this turtle and mail it to us. Yeah. Like, you've got this much math, or you've done this much programming already. You have a story of some cool thing you did that shows you have an aptitude for coding and logic. Like, what does that look like? How do you?
Those things would help.
Yeah. How do you separate me from the people you want?
I think we could train
before
you.
I start.
I think we could train you.
I'd be surprised.
I'm not saying that it's going to be easy.
It would just be like C# en français, like then you could bridge it a little bit easier.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody says Python's sort of the starting point, right?
No,
it's like
not everybody.
That's what I've heard. Well, maybe nobody.
That's what the people that started with Python said.
Yeah, nobody says that. Yeah, everybody. That just doesn't exist. Sorry, I stepped into that one.
Honestly, I have not even looked at Python because I have many other ways to do the things that I want to do without. I haven't found the need to do Python yet. I've found the need to do lots and lots of other languages and other things like that. I mean, we've talked in the past about C# not being my starting point because it didn't exist when I started, right? So you can't start in a language that doesn't exist. But as far as, where do you start with somebody? I think they have to have a desire, really. And with a desire, you have to have some sort of demonstrated, I took apart all my toys when I was 12 and put them back together and they almost worked except for this one blinking light that wouldn't work, or, something on that level, right?
Yeah. When I was hiring for my assistant for a tech support role, let's talk computers.
Right.
If you had unlimited funds and you're going to build a computer, what would you put in it? And if they're like, well, I'd probably buy this kind, I'd buy the nicest Dell they had.
Right.
It's like, no, I want to know that you've built 20 computers. Everybody in your family has a computer you built for them. You support 20 people in your personal life. You've waited tables.
But that's the senior guy, and that's you, right?
Well, he's already
I'm way
weeded me
beyond
out.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I think, to Peter's point, there are things that you can, there are broader concepts and theories around software development that aren't specific to a language, but it's also at a certain point, it's necessary to pick a language so that you can start to practice those concepts. That doesn't mean you're necessarily tied to that language forever. But the thing that I think is also important that we haven't touched on yet is in order to have this program, you also have to have people who want to be a professional mentor. And that's one thing that can be a little bit different about doing consulting, is you tend to attract people who really enjoy doing the actual work. And this would be saying, okay, we're going to take you a little bit step back from that, where you can teach someone else how to do the work. And you got to have enough people who are interested in doing that.
So those that can do and those that can't teach, is that what we're talking about here?
Well, how does this all, there's already other options out there, right? Maybe the apprenticeship is a little too much for software development, but there's, internships. There's, the concept of student teaching, where you take a semester and you're actually in the classroom working with a teacher to learn how to teach, but you're actually hands-on experience and stuff. So there'd be like a period of time where you're sort of student programming, if you will. General mentorships and networking, I get caught up on the mechanics of all this being, it's not a bad idea, but the logistics of it is, maybe it already exists, or.
Well, you have to have, many willing participants, because you have a drain. You have a drain on time. You're probably doing rework, divided attention. I had an intern for 3 months at one point in my career, and it was like the worst 3 months. I was so busy they got me an intern that cost me even more time. Because
I never got farther
training,
behind.
and then I was redoing everything, and then they were gone. All that was wasted, and got very little out of it. And he wasn't even doing that for a living. He was a kid. He was the cousin of somebody that knew somebody that needed a gig. But I think that you have to have the willing mentor or mentors. You have to have the available mentee, the person looking a worthy candidate to be an apprentice. You have to have an organization willing to take a chance on a program like that. And you might have to have other organizations that buy into that program.
Or as part of the, right. So it would be like SDG is going to support a, apprenticeship. And we're going to go market ourselves to up and comers that don't have experience. We're going to sell them the chance to get experience by paying for them to be apprentices. And the objective will be, we'll have someone after whatever the term is, a very productive person now on our bench, capable of taking things. And during it, they're working with somebody who's already senior level, who can teach them to bring them up. But then this person, as they grow in that role, will start to pick some of that up too. So the client's benefit will be, we're going to give you, say, Peter, and he's bringing an apprentice, which you won't pay for.
Right.
But over this 6 to 12 month term, they will be doing some work as Peter sees fit, and the quality will still be up to SDG standards and yada, 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 right?
Yep.
So their benefit is they'll get 2 developers over the course of some of those months, theoretically, for doing this right.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the
go from
the
a
position.
1- to a 1+.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, the equilibrium will shift into a benefit.
Has anyone tried this before?
I'm sure they have. I don't know if they tried it here. There's been like mentorship programs that people can get involved in. The Department of Labor site, the one I shared with y'all, has a mentorship or apprenticeship section where like pharmacy tech was in there like 20 times, but there were some IT positions. I don't know what the pay would be, like appropriate pay, appropriate level of experience. So if we had a hard guideline for hiring of 5 years of experience or equivalent, then our apprenticeship might be 2 years. Our apprentices have 2 years experience. And then over the next year, they're going to get the last 3 years. That'll give the equivalent of the 5. Like we're hoping. Like 1 year with us is like 3 years. Yeah.
Well, it's a career path.
Yeah.
You know, right? We'd be selling. You'd be getting some sort of base apprentice salary, which they exist, right? I mean, I know electricians still have, apprenticeship. Like people do this and they know they're not lucrative yet, but once they become full-on electricians, or in this case, full-on what we would consider billable team members, that's where, the bump comes, as well as your commensurate experience and, whatever the case may be. I think the key would be keeping people here because, developers are naturally curious. Not to paint too broad a brush.
Are you saying the industry has high turnover?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's
then there's the
challenge.
The normal like 1 year itch, 3 year itch that seems to hit people. The 10-year, gives people pause. Wow, it's been this long. Am I doing the right thing? But I think an apprenticeship program would be like you agree to work here for this period of time.
Ooh, like military. You sign up for 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then have evaluations.
But you have to have a way out, right?
And
we're an at-will state, right? I don't know how.
We can't force people to work here.
There's contracts.
Yeah. But
employment contracts.
Yeah,
right?
are you just hiring people and training other companies' people?
But okay, but let's get out of that and just talk about the idea then of, does an apprenticeship make sense still, right? Let's all things being equal, somebody did sign on for a 2-year apprenticeship, fully committed.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay. What, would it be an effective means to either quickly ramp up or effectively ramp up into high quality, developers that can be, I guess, I don't know, productive out. Either it's for clients or just in general as developers, right?
Right.
Because it's really an education program we're talking about. Granted, the business benefit, if it was through SDG, would be, okay, we can bill with you now and we trust you and we understand it works.
Right.
Yeah. You've become an asset to the company. Yeah, I've wondered why there hasn't been more of this type of thing, because so little is actually taught in any kind of school. Like, I did SharePoint consulting for 10 years, and there was never really there was never a college program to major in SharePoint. There was boot camps occasionally, those types of things.
Is a boot camp the same thing?
But
Is it the predecessor to an
it's just
Apprentice?
a classroom, like, days of training across it's a big brain dump. I've done week-long trainings for different stuff, and
Sure.
it is not a I don't think it's
Replacement?
as effective as you'd think.
Yeah. I
because
mean, I would
there's
say
so much coming at you so fast.
absolutely. Yeah. And there's just whenever you're stuck in a classroom, you're losing that in the field experience, because you're working with the best case example that never has any complications, and you're not working with the size of teams that you might be working with in the field, and
Right.
with the software they're using, because your boot camp doesn't want to pay for like Trello Pro, things
Yeah.
like that. I think the appeal to it, and I feel like we've sort of been going around this idea, is that the idea of having a clear path of learning can be really comforting, because there are companies that will have mentorship programs. You'll have a buddy, or there'll be some training when you first start, but a lot of that can be the person who is your mentor kind of just saying, well, do you need anything? I'm here to
Yeah.
help. Where instead of like, I don't know what I don't know.
It's been a month. It's time for us to have our lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas having, like, at least to me, I could say, like, the appeal of that kind of apprenticeship program is nice, because then it's more, okay, just throw me in the deep end. We're going to work through this together, and I'm going to actually build up these skills, because I don't necessarily know if I'm on the right, like, if I'm following the right learning path, if I'm just doing it on my own.
It's knowing something versus applying it.
Yes, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a big, anybody, like, we have it too in project delivery, right? You get your certification. Yep. Does that make you a great project manager or scrum master? No, it gives you a common foundational set of terminology to communicate with, but it doesn't necessarily mean you understand the value of all of that, right? Similar, I imagine, with skills, right? Development. It gives you an understanding of
jargon.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, everybody gets something different out of it. And they can be certainly marketable, but I still think I get what you're saying now, which is the experience is what matters, and knowing all of those little nuances and exceptions that can occur, and being able to deal with that and not getting kind of deer in the headlights in it. I mean, it's all problem solving to a degree.
And so much of being a good problem solver is practice.
Seeing problems to know how to apply a solution.
Yeah. The aptitude for it, it's a muscle. I think that there's also, like, just general aptitude for certain kinds of things. Is it personality profile, or is it someone's hobbies, or, choices, life choice? I don't know how you'd like try to boil a person down into a model that you can say, okay, this person has the aptitude for doing this. This is the right type of person for this. Versus, yeah, this is not going to work. This person's not going to get, the math isn't there, or the logic isn't there, the patience isn't there, to get to where they need to get. Like, how do you, we do tech interviews and things like that. We try to, figure out if somebody's got what it takes in that process. But for somebody that you wouldn't expect to have what it takes right away, it's more difficult because you can't, if you don't expect him to know the answer to the clock problem, why ask it?
Well, and not only that, but like you were saying, you have waitress training for 1 week, and then bam, magically you are now a server and you can do everything. Well, okay, there are going to be there's going to be some bumps on the road, right? But there's also those that wash out after a week, where you say, oh, you absolutely do not have what it takes to be a server. You hate people, you don't like food, you are very
Hoard all of your tips.
You're clumsy.
Your
Bad with
thumb
math.
gets in everything.
right.
Yeah.
And the benefit, right, it would have to be, I think people see the value of doing an apprenticeship, right, to themselves, being able to fail in a safe space, if you will, but failing by doing in a safe space versus I'm going to take my talents to the market and fail, and there's a learning there, and that's important, and there's life lessons in that, but it can also be very discouraging, stressful, and avoidable if we had this wonderful apprenticeship program.
And I think it's useful to kind of think about from a company's perspective. Okay, how could they implement an apprenticeship program in a way that it's safe to fail too? Like it might not make sense to say, okay, we're going to do this program. We're going to start with people that have absolutely no experience but are eager. That is a pretty big gamble. So it might make sense to like, okay, we'd like to move towards that, but maybe we can start with, Kyle wants to do project delivery. He's going to be Nick's apprentice for the next 6 months. Like, we know he may hide it, but he has interpersonal skills. So we know he can do that consulting, but he just may not know the Scrum terminology. And so
in fact, we're going to start there because that's where his strengths are.
He has no organizational skills.
We'll get there. Those can be taught, but your intangibles, those things can't be, and they are the key. You're going to be great. I can't wait.
I just signed you up for it, Kyle.
That is an interesting take on it, Al, is to like have the career slide apprenticeship rather than the full start from zero anything. You can start from a consultant here and slide to a consultant there.
Yeah.
Well,
you're still a consultant, you still have skills.
You're still earning money for the company.
Right.
But is our benefit also quality control of who we're sending out and understanding that they can do it versus a couple of interviews and hoping that their, resume was right and what we understood it to mean,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Like, a server could transition into bartending.
Yeah.
Right.
Then they go be a bar back and start studying all the recipes so they can make a brandy old fashioned that tastes good.
They can make a gin and tonic, the challenging recipes.
And then they can, then they're the extra person behind the bar, working the slowest station, or just doing service bar for a while. You transition into it, but it's not like difficult. It's just you have to go through that process. but if they're a good server, they're good at the tables, they're have a good sense of urgency, they don't make a lot of mistakes, okay, this is a person that could handle this move. So internally, I think we've had people move. Adam moved from SharePoint back into Java. He had done Java for a while, or was it .NET, and then a little Java, and then SharePoint, and then he moved into Java, and now he's a full-time Java guy.
I've
he had
heard
a lot of
SharePoint will do that for a
experience.
person.
SharePoint will drive you to Java.
I wasn't
Sounds like
gonna
it might drive you into project delivery as well.
Ooh,
Yeah, it could drive you into a lot of things. Being the IT guy, perhaps.
and we kid just because Kyle's background is in SharePoint,
Yeah.
not because SharePoint's bad. It's
I'm-
just a joke.
I'm still our admin. I still have to deal with it.
That's right.
But I think that if you can check all the boxes and say, okay, this is a company that is working the program with us. We've partnered with this company to work this way. Or we're going
Yeah, you'd have to have a strong relationship.
Yeah, with that client for sure.
Yeah. And we're going to have 2 people there that are able to work with that person. Because maybe it's a team. The master doesn't have to be an individual.
Right.
It could be a team. That's when I was starting out in consulting, I craved that relationship with somebody that had a lot of experience.
Sure.
And could answer questions for me. That didn't happen.
You
But it
got
was like-
to build it from scratch, but
Well,
it probably took a little longer.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on teams where there's very strong leadership in that regard, where they recognize that the team is only as strong as its weakest link, and they put as much time into building everybody up and playing on strengths and teaching and serving their natural curiosities as they do, delivering code. I've been on teams where that doesn't exist at all, and you end up with a lot of silos trying to, merge them into something that just isn't working because it just lacks that I don't know, team concept, teaching concept.
Well, and
skill.
some people are soloists, and some people are, members of the orchestra, right? There's different levels of, commitment to making the best song, shall we say. If you're part of the orchestra, you're committing to play your part. If you're the soloist, you're committing to, be up front, stand there and give their performance. Both are required sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But you can also it's hard to have great music with just a soloist, whereas having the whole orchestra, band, whatever, together can make music without a soloist.
You've obviously never listened to Wheatloaf.
Yeah. Well, and how do you get the person who plays the instrument but doesn't know how to play the song?
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're talking about, right? We can, we're thinking they're going to come in knowing how to play an instrument or navigate it, but now we have to teach them how to blend with the rest of all these other variables that can occur.
Well, and not only play the song, but play the song with the band.
Right.
So that they're tight. They're keeping, they're keeping the rhythm with the band.
And adjusting as necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
that's mastery.
You could start a somewhat of an apprenticeship program, like start building the model with your current staff. Like if you hire kind of newer people, you could be like, we want you to work with this person.
Right.
these are the people, if you get stuck, these are the people you want to go to with questions. They're on board. We've talked to them. They're willing to help any way they can. If you want them to, or we're going to have them look at your code just to make sure you're on the right path. They're going to be checking in with you. And during this first year, these things are going to happen. So it's like a secret apprenticeship situation. Then you can evaluate that and go, okay, how well did that work?
Can
Were
we
we
extend
able-
it?
Yeah. Were we able to accelerate the skill set and experience of that individual without overburdening the people that we're mentoring?
Right.
That were
Or
in that
failing.
mentor role. Yeah. Because if you're on a demanding project, that's where your brain's at all day and all night. Like you take that home with you. You're thinking about it in the
Right.
car.
It's hard to mentor someone when you're
Preoccupied with it. And then everything else becomes a distraction from that.
right.
So could you find people that could handle that,
Mhm.
that have that type of experience, or people that just have the air in their schedule to do it? Maybe they're on a project that's not difficult for them.
Well, it's just like anything, even today with your teams, when you get new people onto a team, somebody has to have and maintain that mindset of bigger picture,
Mhm.
longer
Right.
term gains at shorter term costs. And oftentimes, a lot of clients, they think, oh, just add a number here, a person here, and we were back to square. And
It's a triangle. It's not a square.
it doesn't work that way. So even then, we're still doing that, and we're still trying to build that in and buy that in. But somebody has to represent that, whether it's the mentor or, frankly, the whole environment really needs to be thinking that way anyway, whether there's an apprenticeship or not.
Right. The whole
Because
team has to
nobody
bring
comes
on
in
the-
knowing everything, right?
Yeah.
Right.
This is
Yeah,
just
I think it
a
needs to be
idea.
deliberate.
Yeah.
Well, and
And-
frankly, you don't want, just for the client's perspective, like I wouldn't want to work with a consulting company that's made up only of individual heroes, because that's gonna fix your fire maybe that's happening right now, but that's not gonna help you support your work longer term or
Right.
put you in a better position than before the
We don't
consultant
actually
came in.
teach you what we do. We
It's
just
not
come in,
sustainable.
solve your problem,
Yeah.
and go away.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah, that's not sustainable. But back to concept of apprenticeship. I mean, it's certainly a intriguing idea in the scope of all the ways we could teach and learn, software development.
Right.
And I don't know that I see it much different than how we do things today. And at the end of the day, it's all about, do you have the support? Do you have the value of time? Are the people who are involved in it being present to actually help and make sure that these things are happening? They see the value of spending an hour with this person to learn is not just as valuable as spending an hour writing code in the moment, but more valuable longer term, both for that person and for this product or customer, so on and so forth.
Right.
I think it's just the level you're doing it at. Like, how green is this person we're going to bring in?
yeah.
Or how green are we willing to go?
And you might be able
Well-
to go green with a business, but I think from a consulting standpoint, you
Yeah.
just can't.
And yet, I would argue there are many who do, and we end up on teams with that. And so ultimately, there's still the mindset. This is really more to me, again, of, I think, consulting clients and our, whoever our partners are at those clients,
Right.
that there is value in learning, and that writing code isn't the objective, the sole objective here. It's getting it right, and doing good work
Yeah.
so that there's something of value at the end, not just showing that you're checking off a task or something if it's useless, right?
Yeah.
Well, and there's there's projects that maybe we're having you do this project, you're going to all work off site. And so basically SDG is responsible for this project happening
Right.
from their location. And we'll just be there in a consultative way. We represent the business, we'll give requirements, but you just get a team together and do the work. So if we had projects like that where we could add a person,
Right.
find out what kind of stuff you could give them to do, and use that opportunity to build them up. We don't have very many. Those projects are few and far between where we're working off site and doing it that way.
Challenge to get it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. But to have, partnerships, like, how is this going to benefit the client
Mm-hmm.
to partner with us in this program? The first 6 months are free.
Sure.
This person doesn't cost you a dime for 6 months. And then we start to bill at our standard or whatever.
Right.
We figure out a rate or some transition into a rate, with check-ins and making sure that, it's going well. They're ramping up. And some people are going to work with you for a few months and just get it.
Right.
Like, there's some pretty sharp people that are like, oh, this is this.
This
I
works.
can do this all day long. Yeah, I get it. What do you need?
Yeah, next.
Yep. So, is there a hole in the market somewhere? Is there a demand? Like, what's the need right now? Or when is that need going to happen to say, we should start a program like this? We should start doing it because it's going to fill this gap.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't have an answer.
two-sided. Yeah, it's a hole in the market, but it's also, is there an opportunity with
Partners.
the people who want to do this? Okay, and I'm talking about like young or inexperienced, maybe not young, but inexperienced developers, or people who want to be a developer. Are they willing to do this as well?
Yeah.
Where they're willing to sit through this kind of, we're kind of we're arguing to revolutionize the training and teaching of software development in a purposeful, market-driven pattern instead of going to school formally, or just starting from the beginning. But ultimately, what you'd be coming out with is that experience that would count towards something and have to be a resume builder of some sort.
It should count. Yeah.
Yeah.
But are there people who are willing to do that? A lot of people who want to be developers, I don't know if they'd see the value in it, or are we tapping into a lot of people who want to do it but kind of don't really understand or fear the getting thrown to the wolves, if you will. This could give them that protection, and it could we could uncover some diamonds, we could go on and help things out.
You've got imposter syndrome already.
Yeah, software development is not going anywhere.
A safe
right?
ramp up into it. You want a soft landing. I think it's desirable. I think you're going to find people that, hey, I think this would be a great way to get into it, versus just tricking my way into a job where I have to actually do this stuff and then fake it till you make it, versus, I could legitimately ease into it this way and learn from experienced people that do this for a living, using current and emerging technologies in the market that are getting used, versus taking a chance on some, we're going to do the site in Flash. What? Yeah. That's this semester is Flash.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's called history.
Awesome.
History class.
There you go.
I think we've solved it. I think companies everywhere are going to hear this, and
I mean,
go nuts.
as long as somebody else can figure out the finances.
I think the finances are the most challenging.
right? Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
I'll leave that to the CFOs.
Just have the idea. I don't need to back it
You're
up.
an
with
idea
money.
guy.
Yeah.
Just
All
in your
right.
concept, is it worth it? And I'm sure there's a place for it, just like there's a place for giving, proper week sit with this person and just kind of figure out how this world works. And there's probably lots of hits and misses, and there's some wins in there too. So it always will come down to what you just mentioned: is there a market, and is there a cost benefit that is worth pursuing?
I'll tell you how you start. Through your normal interview process, you find that person that's phenomenal, but doesn't have any experience. Like if they just had this experience level, we love this person, they knock it out of the park every other way. They're a person I would love to work with. They just don't have much experience. It's like, okay, let's start our apprenticeship program. Yeah, this is our test. Awesome. I think with that, we'll shut her down. That was the SDG podcast. If you want to drop us a line, email us at thepodcasters@solutiondesign.com. Until next time, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.